So, Mike, your professional colleagues, how did they react when you were offered the job to be the director of communications, report right to the U.S. president, President Trump? How did they, what did they think?
Well, I didn't get offered the job. It was my business partner that got offered the job, and when he turned it down because the time commitment for such a thing is so great, he turned to me in a meeting in our office and said, "Are you at all interested?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. Why not?"
What was it like walking to the White House the first time when you had the job?
When I had the job, it was a little unnerving because I got the job the day the president did his first press conference, and the next day going in...
How'd that go?
I thought it went well.
Okay. One opinion.
How do you think it went?
Yeah, that's not one of my questions, but... So you were an intern in George H.W. Bush's White House.
I was.
There was a Bush before the more recent Bush, actually born in Milton, not too far from here.
Yep.
You were an intern in that administration, and you just finished 103 days in the Trump administration.
Right.
Similarities, differences?
Similar in the fact that you've got a lot of people who work extremely long hours, and this is every administration, not just 41s and the Trump administration. But you've got very dedicated people that want to make this country a better place, working in the building. I would say that it was an older crowd in the Bush White House. I was also 20 at the time, so everybody looked older to me.
Yep. So what was the organizational structure? We know Bannon, we know Rance, there were 20 leaders, of which you were one of them. Yeah. How did you fit into that structure? Who did you report to? Did everyone get along? What were the group dynamics? Kumbaya?
Yeah, so for the most part,
you can laugh at Kumbaya.
We sang that every morning.
Oh,
did you know that?
No, I did not know that. You vote people off the island?
It was a little awkward when you had to extinguish the torch, yes.
Okay.
So I was a member of what's called the senior staff. So there's about 20 members of the senior staff, and we'd meet every morning at 8 a.m. So I reported, and all of us, reported to the chief of staff, but we all held the same rank of assistant to the president: chief of staff, communications director, press secretary. Steve Bannon as counsel to the president. So all of us had the same rank, and there's about 20 assistants to the president.
Did some people not show up for those meetings, or it was pretty consistent?
No, it was consistent. It was a mandatory show up.
So as the communications director, I know Trump would sometimes do these morning tweets, and I think he still does them. Yeah. Did you advise him on that strategy? Did you create those tweets? were you the one who typed them in? And if you had nothing to do with them, what were those morning meetings like when you had to address these crazy tweets?
So we started...
I editorialized that, by the way.
Yeah. Crazy is in the eye of the beholder, right? We started every morning at 7 a.m. For our communications press meeting, and I will admit that there were a few of those 7 a.m. meetings that were interrupted by, somebody's tweeted. Yep. Yeah. So we've got a new agenda item for the meeting.
Okay. So I was with Evan Williams not so long ago, one of the co-founders of Twitter, and he was really lamenting how this tool was being used by the president and empowered Trump, or the candidate. And I know you weren't part of the campaign. You were brought in to help right the ship once you got in there. Do you feel that Twitter is being misused, and or what do you think?
No, look, I will be perfectly blunt, because I get to ask this question all the time. Do you wish the president would just stop tweeting? And the honest answer is, especially as a communications director, is no. It is every president since George Washington has wanted to have a direct connect with the American people, and this president finally has it. Obama never took advantage in the last, and really he only could have taken advantage of Twitter in the last few years of his administration. This president takes full advantage of that, and I will say this. When you ask people, or you should ask people, like, where did you see that tweet? Where did you hear of that tweet? And my guess is 90% of them did not see it on their Twitter feed. Where they saw it was on cable news or the mainstream media or somewhere else. So when you talk about Twitter and its power and whether or not it elected Donald Trump, you've got to look into the entire media landscape and say, do the cable networks understand the power of these tweets, and when they react so immediately to put them out there? That's where most Americans read them.
Trump is an impulsive guy, and as a communications director,
again, you're editorializing here. Okay.
I think he's more impulsive than other presidents. I think as a communication strategist for him, you were trying to think long term.
Yes.
Were you able to do anything long term, given how impulsive he was?
One of my it's not just the president, but I worked hand in hand with Sean Spicer, press secretary at the time I was in the White House, and I'd have this saying that Sean deals with today, and as communications director, I deal with tomorrow. One of my regrets was that I wasn't able to focus on the tomorrow as much as I wanted to, because there was so much today that kept coming at us.
How is Trump's off-camera identity persona similar or different to his on-camera?
There's a number of similarities, but I would say the one thing that I think most people would be surprised about is that the president is constantly asking questions. I would be in meeting after meeting, or come into a meeting that was just concluding on some other topic, and he'd go, Mike, what do you think about that? Or we'd be concluding our meeting, and whoever was coming in next, they'd say, do you think Dubke's right on this? I didn't necessarily always want to hear their, yes, he's inquisitive, and I didn't always want to hear their answer.
Why isn't he inquisitive in public? I mean, he thinks it makes him look weak, and then he wants to seem like he has all the answers?
I don't know if I've got a direct answer to that, but I think he likes to project leadership, and in some instances, being inquisitive isn't the best way to project leadership.
How much is this like?
No one walks that much in real West Wing.
All right, Saturday Night Live, what do you think? And we know the president watched it and thought he was unfairly depicted.
Look, I've got two teenage, or actually now college-age sons, so we watch SNL at our house all the time, almost religiously. No, the president wasn't happy with that, and he wasn't happy with some of the ways that his staff were portrayed in it as well. And I think when SNL is funny, it's great, and we all have a good laugh. I know everybody in the White House can laugh at themselves. But sometimes it was mean-spirited, and that's where I think it crossed the line, and that's where it was disappointing from my perspective.
I say the word narcissist. What comes to mind regarding this presidency?
Well, John, we've known each other a long time.
You want to pass on that one?
I think we should.
Okay. Would you work in another administration?
Yes, absolutely.
When was the exact moment that you realized you should resign? Where were you? What were you thinking? And do you regret it, or you're like relieved?
I went in pretty quick. I went in from saying, as I gave the answer earlier, like, yeah, sure, I'll give it a shot. 6 days later, I was communications director in the White House. So I did not give it a lot of...
And people didn't trust you because you weren't part of some of the original teams, no. And they were like, what...
Right.
Like it created an interesting dynamic
for
you.
It was from my perspective. Were
you ineffective or more effective?
No, I thought it was more effective for me. I was not part of the campaign group that came in, and I wasn't part of the RNC group that came in.
Were there many people in that situation, or were you pretty unique?
No, I was pretty unique from that perspective.
Were you able to bring factions together that couldn't because you didn't have an agenda?
I tried my best, and I kind of felt like that was my role.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the press and then fake news?
On the press, look, it's like any industry. I think there are good people, and there are some reporters that I will sing their praises. And then there are other reporters who are either lazy or have their own agenda. I think just generically, we're too interested in the gotcha story. And so we'd spend a lot of our time chasing down and giving answers to stories that you, the public, never see because they're not factually correct, they were rumors, whatever. But we spend a lot of time in the White House, going back and forth with reporters to say there's no reason for you to report on this because it didn't happen, doesn't exist, whatever. And it's kind of a waste of time, but they're doing it because they always want to be that reporter that brought somebody down or embarrassed somebody. News. Fake news is real. Yes, fake news is real. Fake news is a definition of a couple things. It could be a total lie. The Pope endorses Donald Trump would be a definition of fake news that's a total lie. Fake news is also when a reporter does not give the other side of the story or when they ignore other issues. And I think from the president's perspective, when he's talking fake news and what really bothers him is that he sees story after story after story about palace intrigue or this negative thing or that negative thing, and we don't talk about the fact that unemployment's coming down. We don't talk about the stock market. We don't talk about streamlining government and how it operates. And when you don't get the full picture, that's what he calls fake news.
2020, does Trump win?
I think there's a good shot that he does win. Absolutely.
Why?
I heard groans. We're in Massachusetts, right? Yeah. Yes. I'll tell you why, and I'm gonna give two concrete examples for that. In Bill Clinton, elected in 1992, 1994, he devastating lost the House and the Senate. Barack Obama, elected 2008, devastating loss in 2010 from his political perspective. Both of those gentlemen came back and won 2 years later when everyone thought that they were dead in the water. So all of these reports are very premature.
Yeah, the reason why I feel like the rules have changed so much, and partly because of the way Trump has navigated, I feel like there's a Twilight Zone presidency, and that you can't look to the past and we're in like some parallel universe. 1 million more people in Massachusetts voted for Trump. Do they vote for him again?
Yes, I think they do.
Is Massachusetts relevant in presidential politics?
No, it's not.
Why not?
It's not because it's a given that those electoral votes are going to go to the Democrat.
Omarosa's shoes.
Yes.
There was something...
Yeah, there was something recently about that. I thought I was telling a humorous tale, and now I'm concerned about getting a stiletto in my back, so I'm going to leave that topic.
Okay. All right. What movies do you like? What books do you like? I want to humanize this guy for those who have never met someone who has been this close to the current administration. But
I do a lot of traveling, so my movies are generally on my iPad on an airplane, but they tend towards historical nonfiction, and then my books mostly fiction.
Yeah. So you've been to probably half the U.S. states in the last few years for your job. Do you, and you have kids, and you're thinking about the legacy of this administration. Yep. What are you hopeful for because of this administration? What are you really worried about because of this administration?
I went into the administration really thinking, one of the main reasons I did it was thinking about my children. And the vast majority of the people in this administration, as I would say in any administration, Republican or Democrat, go in there because they want to make this country a better place. So I having worked with the people that are in the inside, understanding what their ultimate goals are and where they want this country to be and the American people to be, I am optimistic. I am concerned that we are further and further going down a long road of divisiveness that is not just at the administration level, but more and more when you look at congressional races and House and Senate members, they're not talking to each other anymore. We have very partisan districts for a whole host of reasons.
Gerrymandering, I think it started in Massachusetts.
Gerrymandering is one of them, but technology is so great now that we're able to identify those people who either support us or should support us, and it's so much more cost efficient to turn those people out than to spend money to try to persuade somebody else. And both Republicans and Democrats do this. That's what you end up doing. You only go after those that are kind of with you or fully with you. And we're talking at each other instead of to each other, and that's the one thing that I'm sad about.
So there are a lot of Silicon Valley types who have spent a lot of resources on trying to get eyeballs, who are worried that some of the tools have created this even more gridlock, more division. Technology, politics. Yeah. Is it going to get better? Is it going to get worse? Are people going to figure out how to do things differently? I think people were surprised that Trump won, and I think a lot of people are really worried about, what level this means for, thinking about the long term in democracy. How does technology play?
I think technology plays a huge role, and I also think we're in this kind of this pivot point of transition that you have every few generations. And we had it with migration from rural centers to urban centers, the advent of television in the 50s and 60s. If we really think about it, we've got, a lot of people compare this time with the 60s, but folks were shooting politicians back in the 60s. We don't have that now. So either the Secret Service is really doing one heck of a better job, or we don't have that same level of angst. But we do have kind of a pivot point, and we're going to live through it. I'm optimistic that we're going to get through this. Technology is going to play a huge role. We just don't understand yet how to deal with the technology that's being introduced.
So you were in the White House when immigration, the travel ban, was being tossed around.
Second one, not the first one.
Yeah.
I think part of the reason I got brought in was the rollout of the first one.
Yeah. What, give some insight behind the scenes. What was that like? Did you agree with it? Did you not agree with it? What was effective about it? How does that play out? And then I'll ask a easy softball last question.
No. I thought that was your easy softball last question. At the end of the day, the president truly believes in protecting the American people. And in his view, when you have a failed state that cannot, and that's what the 7 were, they were failed states that could not tell you who these people were that were coming across the border. When you have that and you're putting the American people in jeopardy, that's when you have to say no. Okay. So that was the policy, and that's what we modified it.
Anything behind the scenes you want to tell us about that process, or what was it like in the room?
Can I whisper it?
Yeah.
No, there's nothing I want to.
Okay. All right, last question. We're at a presidential library. One day there'll be a Trump presidential library, maybe after one term.
Manhattan.
What's it going to be like?
What's it going to be like?
And what's going to be in there about your role in this administration?
I think that I'm the longest serving communications director thus far. We'll see if I continue to be.
Who's the other one? Salamucci?
Well, my wife gave me this line, but I joke with people. I served 10 Scaramucci's in the White House. I was there for 100 days.
Like the Schmoot 5.3 Schmoot units across the bridge? Yeah.
I think
what do you think of his selection? Wasn't that crazy?
Sean Spicer resigned over it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was crazy.
Did you interact with that guy at all?
Only the Saturday before he resigned, when he called me and said, "Hey, can you give me some tips?"
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Mike Dubke, if you want to, you think you'd get that many claps
No.
in Massachusetts? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.